It's time.
Good morning, everybody. John Spielkel here for Gen AI News from GAI Insights, rating your top news, essential, important, or optional, putting thoughts in your head, time in your day, trying to make your life easier in the fast-moving market of generative AI. Today, we have the return of the king, Adam Rappaport. Great to have you here, Luda, Paul Beyer, and, of course, Ankaj Anda. All right, Ankaj, please start us off.
Sure, John. Just getting my screen up. Okay, the first one that we have for today comes from Mellon Institute, and it's the Almo 2 model family.
Yeah, so here we've got, this wonderful work that they're doing with all, I mean, this is fully open, right? Open data, open weights, open everything from the Paul Allen Institute. What did you think here, Luda?
Yeah, it's kudos to the team. It's everything is available. And if you go click on the technical report, you will get the functions that they put in, how they trained it, what the embeddings were, step by step, pretty detailed, open way of training, initial training, mid-training, post-training. It's just amazing in the detail that they share. So I think this is a wonderful model for that reason, so to collaborate and take AI forward. However, for the overall audience, I think it's optional. It's really for developers who are specifically working on model training. So optional, John, for me.
Yes, I said, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, so optional, great, important initiative and so forth. Adam, I saw in the pregame, you were optional as well in this, yes?
Yeah, that's right, John. I agree with Luda's assessment. It's great to see it continuing to move forward, but it's a fairly crowded space in the smaller models here in the 7 billion, roughly 713, 32, 1. But in that smaller model space, there are 3 or 4 major players, and they all seem to just sort of continue to just rival each other and push things forward. So there's nothing really big about the news today.
All right, Paul, we're headed for optional on this. What do you think?
Yeah, totally optional. I do want to note, I mean, these guys, I believe, are the truly open source one here. So we're continuing to see true open source, high intelligence out there. So developers continue to have an unbelievable canvas of opportunities as they develop, and we see the cost of intelligence, fly to zero, but optional.
Yeah, just to point out that, fully optional is, they give you their data sets, their weights, source code, their training methods, their tuning methods. So, you hear that Llama is open. It's really not, because they don't give you they'll give you the weights. They won't give you the training methods, certainly won't give you the training data. All right. Optional it is. Next, Ankaj.
The next one comes from VentureBeat, and it talks about hidden costs in AI deployment.
Yeah, I found this thing a little lopsided. It only did input tokens, not output tokens. But what'd you think here, Adam?
Yeah, John, it's an interesting piece. It's an interesting thing to take in mind. The point is basically that not all models tokenize to the same size. So when you're looking at the price per token or price per 1 million tokens, and you compare Claude to GPT, if you just on face value, as it says there, look at 0.003 per 1,000 versus 0.005, they're not actually the same for the same amount of text, right? So you need to take that into consideration, and Claude actually does more tokenization. So for the same amount of content, you're actually going to use more tokens, and it's sort of a hidden cost that you need to take into consideration. I think the concept in general of the cost of tokenization and the cost of the model use is important. This particular point is probably optional news. In general, I would suggest, and I certainly hope that our listeners out there aren't just taking the token costs on face value, but they're actually doing some testing themselves, on smaller sample sets of representative data and coming up with numbers for themselves. And they would probably come to find, oh, look, this actually is more expensive. So, it's good to be aware of. I would potentially call it important because it is speaking to a broader consideration, which is particularly as you get into larger enterprise implementations of these things. The cost per thousand or million tokens absolutely becomes a huge factor, but this piece of news itself is probably optional.
All right, Paul, we're heading for an optional. What do you think?
Yeah, Anka, if you scroll up a little bit, back up. I was a little suspect of this article. Stop right here. They're taking pricing, Adam, from June of 2024, which feels like eons ago. It felt a little bit like a hit piece here, but I think optional. I think we talked a lot about the explosion of token usage and importance of understanding total cost of ownership. But this particular article, optional, in my view.
Luda?
Yeah, I am super optional for the following reason, because I think you have to take into account and review the costs from the point of view of result and quality. So for some of this, Claude is known for sort of better coding. Anecdotally, I haven't seen the study to compare, right, with ChatGPT, but it is sort of an advanced model. And additional tokenization might be the reason that they're better. So you can't really avoid talking about the result and the cost, right? So I think this is taken out of context completely. So you just I feel that it's not quite right compare. It's not apples to apples, I think. So yeah. I feel this is totally optional and misleading.
Yeah, I agree. They don't have any output tokens. I didn't do it scientifically, but my casual observation is that OpenAI tends to be, more verbose than Claude is. So, on the other side, it's much more expensive on the output token. So they could easily make up input token differential on the output tokens in no time. Anyway, I just think this is going to be, she said I wouldn't worry about token size. I agree with them. We're just at the beginning of, pricing in this area, and there's going to be so many ways. It reminds me of, distribution of office products. Gee, I do a great job. I give you very cheap, paper clips, and I make it up on the copy paper or something. It's going to be just a wild west on pricing, but optional it is. Okay, Akash, next.
The next one comes from AWS and talks about the Word Finder app, how they are harnessing GenAI on AWS.
Yeah, this is an interesting article about folks with aphasia who make up about 0.5% of the population, they estimate, in Australia. And, a typical, well laid out Amazon case study. This one's a little bit more salesy than usual. They're all salesy, but this one's, very much about why this tool is a very good use of the ability to look at other words in context. The issue of people with aphasia, as I understand it, is they have a difficult time communicating. Some of that is on word association and getting the right word to come to mind. Pictures can help that. Near concepts can help them express themselves. So very important work for a small part of the Australian population. But I was going to give this an optional. Because I think that for our AI leader, it doesn't really introduce any new concepts, and it's a very small market. Although, in terms of, complying with, diverse and handicap access and so forth, might be an interesting story. Anyway, I was headed optional. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, John, I agree for the reasons you've said. It's a great use case, right? Large language models are fantastic at context and finding things that are associated with other things. So I can see where this will be a tremendous help, but I think for our audience, this is an optional read.
Luda?
Yeah, I agree.
All righty, Paul? Optional. All right. Ankash, next.
Okay, the next is a case study with Anthropic and Lotte Home Shopping, where they have improved QA efficiency and partner satisfaction.
Yes, through the messaging app Sendbird, which is a very kind of cutesy name that I like. Anyway, Luda, what'd you think here?
I actually gave it an important, believe it or not. I think for several reasons. One is that this is a clever combination of quite a powerful LLM, Claude, right? And then a secure platform, messaging platform, Sendbird. I haven't really used it, but this is a competitor to a much heavy lift like AWS or Microsoft Azure. So I think for that it's a good thing to highlight. That there are alternatives to signing up for a broader platform, right? If you're wanting to do a specific thing. The second item is that it is positioned in an area where every business needs to really focus, and that is finding ways to quickly identify leads, process them, schedule meetings, and the like. So essentially, automate that part of sales or pre-sales, if you will, and they did it quite well with really good results that they cite. So for those two reasons, I feel that it's important.
All right, so we have an architectural, optionality, which this shows. You don't have you've got important area with great results. All right, looking at important here. What'd you think, Paul?
Definitely important. I mean, this is a common use case. I think the AI leader needs to find and look for solid use cases on the revenue side whenever they can to secure momentum in the organization here, and this is one they should be aware of.
All right, Adam, I think you and I were on optional on this bad boy.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I didn't feel there was, frankly, enough meat on the bones. They don't say really how they did it. Like, good for them. It's a cool idea. But if I read this article, I wouldn't really be sure where to go from here, other than to go start throwing money at Claude and Sendbird. So I didn't really feel it offered enough value. And frankly, the area that it's addressing in terms of a use case is something that LLMs have been addressing for almost 2 years now. It's just a new, cleaner, more efficient, streamlined way to do it. So I was in the optional camp. I would not be opposed if we landed on important, though.
All right, yeah, I was optional as well. Our friends over at getjerry.com, I think did a better job of this 2 years ago, as you said, Adam. I don't know. It's 2-2. I hold the power of the chalk, so we're going.
Wait. Ankash?
Ankash.
Let's get Ankash here. Let's get his take.
What do you say? Optional or important?
I think important, John. I'm with Luda here. I think Luda mentioned some really great points about this one. So
Wrong
important for
answer.
me.
Hey, I'm from Chicago, In the vote we bought. All right, important it is. So we go for important on this one. Democracy reigns. I'm feeling nostalgic about democracy. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. The next one comes from Llama Index, and it talks about building smarter AI SDRs with Llama Parse, how 11x.ai is shrinking RAM time to days.
All right, Adam, what do you think?
I had a tough one with this one out of the blocks. It's clearly written for a specific group. I mean, it doesn't even explain anywhere what SDR is. And so straight away, I'm like, okay, what's this even quite talking about? And then it goes right into SDR that handle outbound with precision, speed, and consistency. Like, you should just know what that means. So I had to go, of course, talk to the robots about what that is, and it's like the salespeople are doing inside sales calls, but outbound, right? And it just kind of left me wanting more. It seemed more like a commercial for Llama Index and demonstrating the capabilities that it offers than I really felt like it left the user with much in terms of what they could do to actually get something like this off the ground. So I thought it was optional.
All right, poorly written advertisement here. What are we looking at, Luda?
Yeah, I agree with Adam. Even though this is another sort of across industries use case, so but yeah, it's not very well written.
All right, Paul, going for the big O here.
Optional.
Right. Okay, Ankash next.
Okay, the last one that we have comes from Epoch AI, and they talk about where's their 10-minute AGI.
Yeah, I signed this myself. I'm going to give this an optional. Mentor came up with this thing about how the length of tasks, the ability to shrink tasks by, you can double every 7 months on doing a task. And then what the writer says is, hey, look, not sure that happens as you go from being able to do 50% of a task at an 80% level, to 95% of the task at 100% accuracy. And that's true. Put another way, task resolution in the context of an unstructured, semi-structured task is not linear. Okay. Put another way, it just gets, as you get that last 20%, 10%, whether that's accuracy or task coverage or both, is actually really complicated. My doctoral thesis actually dealt with this. I named it a process of progressive structuring the dialogue between the method, the tool, and the task itself. Because as you solve the problem, you start to understand what you still can't solve. And that's very hard to assess a priori, before the fact. So anyway, I think the Meta folks went too far, did a nice, and I think that this article does a good job of pulling apart the Meta argument, in terms of saying, look, they did a curve fitting exercise in the context of performance. But anybody who's got a background in statistics would know that they're approximating a non-linear, non-normal distribution, and this function is not going to continue the way the first part of the function works. So optional. What do you guys think?
I'll jump in there. I think and it's right down near the bottom. It's about 2/3 of the way down in discussion. The second paragraph, it says, I think we should not interpret Meter's paper as saying AIs can do most tasks that humans can do in an hour. And I don't think their researchers would believe this claim either. Though, unfortunately, I've seen people interpreting things this way on Twitter. He probably could have led with that and really made a point that his point is really that people are misunderstanding what this is saying. And I didn't think he did a really good job of getting around to that.
All righty. Luda?
Optional for me.
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, two things. I think this is yet another attempt to find a Moore's law equivalent over on intelligence automation here, which is so difficult for all the reasons you said, John. And, we see again and again, this last mile of getting the task automated is non-trivial, and partly because of the thing that you've talked about, that distribution tail of all those use cases and things are non-tricky. And oftentimes those are the ones that have the highest value, and you've got to put labor at it, because you automated the simple ones here, and the harder ones are the more complex use cases here. So I think that we're beating up an optional, but we might have a day without an essential. So I'm excited about that.
Yes, we are. I think we almost went for no hitter. It's a one hitter.
Hey, John, I just looked back. Speaking of, it was October of last year was the last time we had a no hitter with all optional news. So
come on, you guys.
The streak
Can we
stays on.
downgrade? Can we downgrade?
Credit to Ankash for finding all the good stuff so that it continues to be important and essential.
I'm in the mood to downgrade the Claude one so we get a no hitter. Oh, come on.
No.
All right. So, Ankash, if you could put forward, this can be optional. And Paul, what's up tonight?
So Learning Lab tonight, we're going to be talking about ChatGPT prompts, and Rosemary is tentatively scheduled to give us an update on some of the trends in SEO optimization in this answer world. We are still working on a ChatGPT Teams session, and we're going to move that probably for a week here or two, as we're getting a lot of feedback, and I want to start a frequently asked questions about Teams before we go into that. But join us tonight. It continues to be a really important process of the learning.
Yeah, for folks who haven't aren't aware of it, this AI week in Boston is shaping up really interestingly. Our conference is the capstone on Monday, Tuesday, September 29 and 30, but there's a tremendous amount of activity, job fairs, hackathons. It's going to be a full week in Boston, starting on the 22nd. That's going to, or the
26th. Yeah.
26th is, sorry.
26th October 3rd, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just going to be fantastic. So just want to make you aware of that. Also, if you are in the New England area and you want to participate in that, it's an open forum, you just get in touch with us about, how you'd like to, list your thing and so forth. We can tell you which way to go. And whatever you want to do in terms of being part of the AI community, paid or unpaid, we're really trying to build up a tremendous amount. Ram says it's October, right? No, it's actually the end of September, Ram, and then the first couple of days of October. So it's right at the cusp. And remember, Yom Kippur is the, I believe it's October the 1st, the sunset of October 1st, Yom Kippur begins. So, all right, we've got one important, blemishing our no-hitter, and the rest optional. All right, time back in your day. Look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, and those who want to come tonight and see what's happening as we move from the question economy to the answer economy, come join us at 7 o'clock Eastern to 8 o'clock. And just go to Meetup, and if you have any problems, contact us and we get on. And again, please subscribe and like this channel if you watch it. And you can always find the articles at gaiinsights.com/articles. Thanks. Bye.
Can everyone stay on for 1 minute?